Awesome. So before the break, we grabbed our data. We created a piece of state that holds all the articles. And in our in our app, we're looping through all those articles and we're returning an article teaser component per article, which displays some of the information. So it displays the ID, displays the title, and then it displays the created date. Any questions before we get started on more implementation? All right. Sorry. Okay, so the next piece of the puzzle that we want to implement is being able to click on this and get more information around the article itself. So let's say typically we would reroute to another page, but we're not going to really learn about that till tomorrow. So we're going to do a different way of displaying more information based on a click. So let's say we want to click on this, and then below it, we want the article information to pop up. So every time I click, stuff in here shows up. If I click on this one, stuff in here will show up. So let's start at our article component. So article teaser was displaying this information here. For the article itself, we want to display a few more pieces. We would want the URL for sure and the author. I think those we did not capture in the other one. Okay. So here, let's say I'm going to take in the props because I don't know what I'm getting yet, but I will most likely, actually, what piece of information should we send into article?
You mentioned the URL. Is that what you wanted on this one?
Mm-hmm. So should we maybe send in all the information of the article since we are
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So let's say this takes in the article itself. I'm just going to say, I'm going to send in props and I'll handle grabbing the information from it. So what do we want to display? We want to display our URL. So let's make that an 8 tag. And you can format it with like maybe an H4, so it's a little bigger. So in here, I'm going to say, so the link should we do the link be, we'll just have the URL itself. So I'm going to say props.url. And then we're going to display the author's information. I'm just going to make that a paragraph tag and props.author. Okay. Maybe let's include the header as well. Actually, we'll come back to this. Yeah, we'll come back to the styling of this or the displaying of the certain information. So right now, our article is going to say some information. I'm going to comment this one out. I'm just going to say this is more article info, and then we'll get back to exactly displaying the information once we send props in here, because we haven't sent anything from the top layer. So if I go back to my app, we have our list of all of our articles that is being mapped to article teasers. For our current functionality that we're trying to make, each article teaser, I want to click on it and then the information will show up. So where do you think we should put the article information?
Wrap it in the article teaser.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be a good way to do it. So maybe after the article teaser information is displayed, we have an article here, right? Is that what you were saying?
No, well, I was thinking in the apps.jsx, like using it as an A tag, but using the article
Mhm.
as the A tag.
So basically. So kind of like this, where this closes the article teaser, and then inside of it, there's an article. Like that.
Yeah, well, the other way around, so the article would be the A tag in this scenario.
Okay, so the article is on the outside, article teaser on the inside.
Not sure if that would work. That was just
Yeah. Let's try a few different ways, actually. So I'm gonna just keep this closed as it was. Okay, so the article teaser, we would want to I'm actually thinking, because there are a few ways that we can do this. My thinking was that inside of this article teaser, we can display, we can have the article be here, but just not shown. So when we click, we'll change a piece of state that will say, okay, now we'll display all the information. So that's one of the ways that I was thinking we can implement this. And then we can, let's do that first, and then we can come back and try a few different ways. Okay. So I'm thinking because we need to send in all the article information into article, that means all the information that's going into article will have to be in the article teaser as well. So what do we have to change about this here, about the props?
We need to have the
Yeah,
information
so,
that we want to grab from article being passed there.
Definitely. So we have to, we can either say article equals article. So we can just send in the whole article as an object, or we can actually use the spread operator, which I believe it's these. Okay. So the spread operator takes everything inside of the article and dumps it as attributes. So so all of these attributes that you see here, ID, title, created date, URL, author, and object ID, will be sent into article teaser as individual entities, individual attributes. So you don't have to actually access them via article.id. You'll just see it as ID in the props. So we can, yeah, let's do this. So now our article teaser, we're gonna have to look at the definition. So ID was part of it, right? So in here, ID, title. Actually, for the article teaser, let's just send in the entire article. We'll do the spread operator in a bit. So here, I'm gonna say article, and this is going to be equal to the individual article object. Okay, so in here, I have to grab that article. So I'm just gonna name it article, and now I can say article.id, article.title. Created date was the only one that was a little different, because in our app, we defined the date as created date with an underscore. So we need to make sure that that matches the name of it. So I'm going to say article dot created date. There we go. So let me comment this one out, and I want to make sure that the information is still being displayed even though we changed. So we want to make these changes iteratively. Okay, everything seems to be correct. Okay. So because we want to do an on-click event that will show this article, that means we have to do some conditional rendering. Can anyone tell me what this conditional rendering is, or what it can do?
It's going to be some kind of ternary operator, probably, like if the article exists, then display the article. Otherwise, well, not necessarily if the article exists, but like basically if they haven't clicked on it, then don't display it. Otherwise, display it.
Yeah, definitely. And so if we're doing a click-based one, what do we need to have to kind of keep track of whether something was clicked or not?
We could have a use state with this just a Boolean, and then an on click that kind of triggers that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna import use state real quick from React, and I'm gonna create a piece of state. So constant, and I'm gonna name this one show article. Show article, comma, set show article.
Zedan, are we not supposed to import article also inside that? We're using it right on line 13.
We are supposed to, thank you. For article. There we go. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so we're creating a state. So I'm gonna say use state. And what should I default this show article state to?
False.
False. Because in the beginning, we don't want to show the entire article. We just want to show a quick little teaser information. Okay. So we have our piece of data. Then we can say, so conditional rendering, there's a few ways of doing this. One of the ways that we can render something based on a condition is, let's say this one is true, just so we can demonstrate this. Is our article actually printing something? Okay, so this is more article info. Okay, so right now what we have in our article teaser, just the article component. So if I go here, I see that this is the article component that is there. My show article is set to true, and I want to test out a few things right now. I want to test out being able to show this article and hide it conditionally. So based on this condition, based on the show article condition. So one of the ways of doing this is you can do you can use the and operator. So I can say show article and this article component. You can also put it on a separate line so it's a little easier to see. So I'm going to remove that. So what this does is it's going to say, it's going to check this show article. If the show article Boolean is true, then it will render this second one. If it is false, then it will not render it. That is basically what this is going to do. So I'll check, it should be still true. So it's still showing. If I set this to false, it should disappear. So now that part disappeared. I'm gonna make this a header just so we can see it more easily, actually. Okay. So now, yeah, if I set this back to true. There we go. More article info. So this is one of the ways to do some conditional rendering. The second one is we can actually create a helper function to do this. So let's say this function is called render if show article. Okay, so this will basically ask if show article is true, then we want to return an article component. So we want to render this article pretty much. And where does this function get called? If I want this to be something that will render to the screen.
In the return statement below.
Yeah, exactly. So I can put it inside of my div. All I have to do is put curly braces and then call render the if show article with parentheses, and this will call the function. It'll evaluate whether or not we should show this article, and it will show it. So I'm going to comment this part out because we know that works already. So when it's true, it's showing up. I'm going to go back and set it to false. When it's false, it doesn't show up anymore. So that is the second way of doing this. So you can render a function, and this function evaluates a certain Boolean, and based on that, it will return whatever component you want to render.
Might have missed this part, but how do we get that Boolean state to change when the user clicks?
We have not gotten to that one yet.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. That's gonna be our next one. Okay, so you can have a render function. A third method to do this is you can use the ternary operator, which we've seen before. So in here, I can say, I can ask show article. So show article is going to be my my conditional statement. And if it's true, then I want to have an article component here. Else, I can just return an empty string, or I can return a div, or anything I want. So not anything. So it's either an empty component or an empty string. Those are the only two acceptable things to be put alongside these tags. So everything that's going into the return statement has to be in JSX form. So the empty string is the safest. So this one, now we can check. So it's set to false right now. If we check here, we're not going to see it. If I set it to true, then now I see it. Awesome. So we're going to see it for all of these because we haven't set the clicks. So yeah, which one do you guys want to see or want to keep here? Ternary. Huh?
I said it, ternary.
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 Okay. Let's keep this one. All right, so now we have our conditional set up. We just need to make sure that on click of something, this show article shows up. So I feel like I wrote article wrong. Is it LE? Okay. I've been staring at it for so long, it looks weird. Okay, so if we look at this, we see these components. Do we want on click of the title? Do we want on click of the entire component to show the article? What do you guys want to
The
see?
whole component.
The whole component? Let's do it. Okay. So since this article is inside of this component, we might need to put this top part in a div. We could also, okay, there's a few ways of doing this as usual. Someone tell me if we want on click of this entire component to render this, to change pretty much the state, so this conditional will trigger something. What are our options?
Give it an
We
ID
can
on
put
line
a-
16.
Okay, I heard give it an ID and what?
I was gonna just give an on-click listener for the whole div.
Okay, that works.
I haven't tried that before, but I think it would work.
Okay, what other that would work, yeah. What else can we say?
Like you said, that's the H2 and the P tag inside of a div. Put an on-click on that div.
Okay. It seems like that's the popular one. Let's say we wanted to have this show article out of the article teaser. So we wanted this article to show here. What would we have to do to make that happen? So if we wanted this conditional to be in the app instead, and then whenever we click on an article teaser, that will change the display. We would probably have to make the state out here in a way that it can be shared between the components, right? Because this is going to be show article. This is, yeah. I wanted to demonstrate, actually, let me demonstrate that because there's something that will happen that is not good. But I can demonstrate that after we test this out first. So we said to create a div. Take that div. We put our article teaser information inside, and then we can set an on-click function on the div. So on click, and I'm gonna say on click, maybe update show article or something like that, whatever you want to call it. So for this, I'm gonna have to create a function. That's not what I wanted. Okay, constant. Yeah, Darius, that's a very good, concise way of doing it, and I'll show that the entire class in a sec. So update show article, it's a function. Let's just say function. So again, these are two different ways of doing the same thing. To update it, we can say, how can we update this? So if it's true, we want to make it false. If it's false, we want to make it true.
You have to go through set show article. Or
Yeah, yes,
set
exactly.
show article.
So what's the code that I should write in here? To actually set it.
Still, if parentheses show exclamation mark show article.
Exclamation, you said exclamation mark, right? If not.
Yeah, so if not show article and then put in curly brackets, set show article parentheses true.
Okay. And what if it's already true and I want to close it? I want to turn it into false.
And then you put a else statement. And do the opposite, set show article false.
So, okay. So one of the ways is to do this. So we just check whatever it is and we set it to the opposite. So if it's false, we want to set it to true, else we want to set it to false. Another way, a little more concise way of doing this is you can say set, you can use a ternary operator if you want. So you can do, what is it called? Like show article there. So if it's true, then we want to set article to false. Else we want to set it to true. Okay. This is a second way of doing this. I'm going to comment both of these out. The third way of doing this is you can just say set show article, not show article. So this is setting the show article state to whatever the opposite of its current state, pretty much. So show article, let's say it's true, the not in front of it turns it to false. That means we're setting it to false because it was true. And the opposite works as well. When this is false, the not, so not false equals true. That means we're going to be setting it to true. Any questions on this? No. Okay. So, and also we can go through an external function, or we can have this logic right in here, right in the onClick. So I can just say this, I'm going to copy this. There we go. So this is a different way of doing it, where we can call the function itself. Update show article. So now we can actually test it out and see if it works. So we have an issue, too many re-renders. Let's go back here. Actually, I don't think it's
Zainab, I threw it in chat. We just need we need to invoke the function before.
yeah, this right.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so whenever I forgot that whenever you use the parentheses, you have to actually put the parentheses out here and make it, it's basically denoting it as a callback function, and it's not going to execute that function. It's not going to execute set show articles when it's defining this div on click, which is why usually we only put, like here in update show article, I didn't put the parentheses. I just put the name of the function because I don't want it to be executed when we get to line 29 and it's or line 31, whatever it is, and being defined. We only want it to happen on click.
So we don't even need that update show article. So we don't need the helper function at all. We can just set an empty function in 31 and then do the logic right in line.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Noise.
So this is instead of this.
Cool.
Okay, let's test it out. So if I click, I open this. Awesome. If I click again, it goes away. Great. Awesome. So what I was going to show earlier is if we had this article out in the app and the app was taking care of the state, we would have a show article that would be triggered by a click. So we can have the state be shared, and also maybe the click handler would also be a shared function. But what would happen is if any of these article teasers is clicked, because these are multiple, right? This is a list of them. If any one of them is clicked, it will say show articles as the general state. And then all of these would open up at the same time, because the show articles would be a shared piece of state between all of the article teasers. So that is why we had to keep inside of article teaser, we had to keep the show article state specific to the singular line, because if it's shared with all the other ones, if one of them changes, that means all of them would open up at the same time, and we don't want that behavior. Any questions or thoughts on any of this? So in our app, we're sending in the entire article to the article teaser. So in article teaser, we need to send some information down to article as well. So here article is going to use pretty much all, if not most of the pieces of information. So here we can just use the spread operator. So instead of using it like up here, where we said article.title, article.id, we just want all of the attributes to show up. So we can send in article with the spread operator. And now when we go into article here, we can either put them into props, or we can just grab them all here. So I'm going to say ID, title. I probably won't use all of them, but created, date. Forgot the names of the rest of them. Created date, URL, author, and object ID. So here, URL, author, and object ID. I think it's underscore. Yeah, object ID. Okay. So now that we have this information, when we're clicking, we see everything go below it. So I'm not gonna redo the title and the date published. Instead, I'm just gonna display the rest of them. So these on. So here I'll create an A tag. I'm going to have it just display my URL. And then I have to set the href to the URL itself. So href equals URL, not in a string. I think, wait, sorry, has to be in a string, but the URL itself needs to be inside of square bracket. I think this would work. We'll test it out. So href is the URL itself, and then we want to display the URL as well when we see it to be able to click on it. So here, this is what we see. Awesome. So that was part of that one article. This one's also GitHub. This one is an actual website. Okay. Cool, cool. Maybe instead of showing the URL here, we want to say go to article page. Okay. And then we want our author. So let's just delete here. Let's say author. And the author would be just the author that we grabbed. There we go. Probably make this H5. Okay. If we wanted to display the object ID, we can. I'm just gonna put it here. Object ID equals There we go. Now, if we look, we click, we have the information here. It's not pretty, but it does the job. Now we click, it goes to an article. Awesome. So one thing we might want to do now is create the app nav. Any questions about any of this? This is just basic displays.
So what I've run into now is if I click on the article,
Mhm.
like the A tag,
Yeah,
it closes, which it should, but it feels weird, right? So like if I click on the link to see the full article, it closes that div like before it renavigates me.
so that issue is going to come from your article teaser here. So here you have to check where your on click is. So I created a div around only these two elements, the top two elements. And
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so if you put your on click on this bigger div, anything within that, if you click it, it's going to trigger the on click. So in here, if anything in orange would have triggered the on click, but because for me, I have only these two elements encompassed, only if I click on these top ones will it disappear. So if I click down here, nothing will happen. Which I should probably have like a little like caret button that shows up on the side, maybe over here. It's actually
Zainab,
uh-huh.
could I possibly see real quick the spread operator that when you passed in all these
These ones, this one.
Okay, yep, that's all I needed to see. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, real fast with the spread operator in our article, we specified each piece of information coming in. I think you said it earlier, but we could have said like props dot right and do it that way, or is it
Exactly. Yeah. So when we're inside of our article, instead of specifying all of these, we could have just said this is called props. And then in here, I would say props.url.
Okay.
And props.
Right, thank you.
Mine's probably a super simple syntax somewhere, but for whatever reason, the URL like will show up, but it won't take me to the actual URL. It just.
Do you have the URL here in the href? Also, I don't know.
href. I do.
Yeah. So href, and then you have something displayed here.
I do. Yeah, I've got that in the A tag, and then up in line 1 where you've got parameters. I've got URL listed. Not totally sure where else to check.
Is it printing? So if you put the URL in here, will it actually display a proper URL, or is it not? Is there something like, is there a disconnect somewhere in the data itself?
Let me try real quick.
Yeah. That would be the next thing I would check.
Okay. Yeah, it's a disconnect somewhere, so I gotta make sure.
Okay.
Casting.
So one thing we did change earlier, make sure inside of our article teaser, the article teaser will take in the entire article. And then inside of your app.js, make sure that when you're creating an article teaser, you are sending the entire article and not just the pieces.
Okay, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course. Okay. Who else is running into this? Or running into like not all the information is getting to the end.
I'm not running into any issues. Can you from the the start kind of go step by step so I can like just sink it into my mind a little more?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we can start in our app.js. I'm gonna remove this import. Okay, so app.js, we are importing our news data from the JSON. And when we're importing our data, it is putting the data as it is into a variable called news data. So here our data is a list of objects. So this list, this news data will be a list of objects. Okay, so in the beginning of our app, we are creating a piece of state called all articles. And this all articles is being initialized as a list of objects. And this list of objects is based off of the news data that we just imported. So we're taking the news data, we are mapping through it, and for each article and index in that list, we are creating a new object that contains only the information that we need. So I'm taking the ID, title, the created date, the URL, the author, and the object ID. So note here that I changed some of the names because I wanted to use these names in my application. So I wanted created date with an underscore, let's say, and object ID with an underscore, instead of having object ID like this and having created at instead of the created date. So you can change, you can pretty much specify how your data is going to look like. And this is how I did it. Okay. So I grabbed all my articles in the format that I want. And then in my app, I am displaying an app nav component that we haven't fully done yet. And then I'm looping through all of my articles. So I'm mapping through them. And for each article, I'm creating a new article teaser component that will hold the article information. So each of these articles will be mapped into an article teaser. Each article teaser has a show article state. And this state will determine whether or not we show more information about the article. So down here in the return, we'll look at that one first. Our return contains our article teaser information. So we have article ID and article title, as well as the created date. And then we have a conditional statement here that determines whether or not we should see the article information, whether or not we should see more of this information. So this is triggered by a show article state that we have defined up here at the top of our component. So this is initially initialized to false. So that means that when everything renders, we don't want to show any article information. The thing that will change the show article is an on-click event that I added around a div. So around wherever I want to click and have that change the state, that is where I put my on-click function. So I created a div around the header and paragraph tag here. And so when I click on them, it sets the show article state to whatever it is not right now. So if it's true, it'll set it to false. If it's false, it'll set it to true. And that will then trigger whether or not this article component will render. And then our article component is just taking in article information using the spread operator. So here, sorry, I went too back. Okay. So here in the article, we're sending all the separate attributes of the article object into article as individual components. So in article, you're able to access them through this, through destructuring. You could also just lump these all into props, and you can access them through props.url or whatever you want to grab. And yeah, so our article is just displaying more information. And with our article teaser, because of how we did the on-click, it will always toggle the opposite way. So whenever we click on it, we could open it or close it. So if we go here, if I click, it'll open with more information around the article. So this is the article component here. Good. Is that's kind of that's what we've done so far. Yeah, Kayla. Question.
Where we have function update show article,
Mhm.
are we using that, or because
For this one, we're not using it because we found a different way to do it.
okay,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this one's just an alternative. So you could
Oh.
either have your functionality, if it's just one line like this, you might as well just put it inside of the on-click definition inside of the element.
Oh, yeah, I had gotten confused. My internet went out for a second, and but I saw that we created a function within the on-click button. So I didn't know if we were using that or not somewhere.
Yeah. So this is all different ways of doing it. So this one, these two are equivalent here.
Okay.
And within the update show article, there's multiple ways of figuring out what we want to show. So, or sorry, figuring out what we want to update the article to. This is a more concise way. Just set show article to the opposite of whatever show article is right now. And these are two other ways. So having an if else statement and having a ternary operator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hey, Zina, can you explain the spread operator? I'm trying to read it and understand it, but I can't.
To which one? The create.
Oh, no, the spread operator online.
The spread
43.
operator here.
Yeah,
So
what is article looks like before we spread it?
So article was up here, right? We sent it in from the app. So article is just one of the objects that was in the list of all articles. So previously we had a list of objects. So each object is an article. And then we take that entire object and we send it into an article teaser. So what this looks like is this. It is an object with these parameters, with these attributes. So each article is an object that contains an ID, a title, created date, a URL, an author, and an object ID. So when we send it into the article teaser as a prop like this, that means it's going to contain its object shape and it's going to be sent in as a whole object. So when we
article on that on line 28,
the
first article will be an object of objects.
No, this will be the object itself. So we're not, so is it because of these? You're thinking it's an object of objects? Like
because article will be single article in all articles.
Yeah, so all articles is a list of objects, which means a single article is one object. And this one object is just being sent into the article teaser as a prop. And there's no extra nesting here. It's just the object itself gets sent over.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this is going into article teaser as an object. So that way that's why we can grab here like article.id, article
Yeah,
title. Uh-huh.
Sorry, the first time online, when you declare the function article teaser or the component,
Mhm.
so right there, we only have like one object each time, like on
Plus-
line 1 or line 2. No, I'm talking about article teaser.
Article teaser.
Line 5. So
Mhm.
basically, we will have like one object each time
Yes.
we render
How
that
does-
component.
So when we're mapping through, we're creating an article teaser object for every single article. So every single article teaser will have exactly one article mapped to it. So this map function maps whatever is in that list 1-to-1. So each article will have an article teaser. That is why we're sending in this. So this article here, what we named it article, this is just an alias. Oops. This is just an alias for the first item in this list. And so, like if we look at here, let me show you the components real quick. So in here, we have, just gonna close these three. We have our app nav, and then we have an article teaser component for every single article that we had. So this is happening because we used this map function. It looped through all of our existing articles, and then it created a new list that has, so it's going to be a list of article teasers instead of a list of objects, pretty much. That's what the mapping is doing. So when we're returning this article teaser, that is being put into the new list that is actually being displayed here. So article.map doesn't change the original list. So any list.map, it doesn't change the initial list. It creates a new list and returns it. So when this finishes evaluating this entire map function right here, this will be a list that has the same size as the original list, but it will be based on whatever you returned in here. So this code will return a list of article teasers. And each article teaser had one of the articles sent in as a prop, so it has the information.
Okay, can you go back on article teaser so we have the article as one object each time, right? On line 5. And then what is the spread operator to again?
Down here?
Yes.
Yeah. So what this is doing is it's taking that object and then it takes all the attributes, the individual attributes inside of it, and it sends the attributes by themselves into article. So instead of being packaged up into one object, it's the individual items inside of that object are being sent in one by one to the article. So when we're in the article here, we can access all the individual pieces instead of saying article here and then having to do article.url. So we're not sending in the object itself, we're sending in the individual pieces. So think of it as the object. So the article is a package, right? And this package has all of these individual attributes, all these, let's say there's like individual letters or something like that. So each one has that. So instead of sending the entire article like we did here, instead we're sending the individual letters that are inside, the individual, like we're sending in the ID, we're sending in the title, we're sending in created date, all of those pieces, but outside of their package. So instead of sending in the object with ID, title, and whatever it is, we are sending in ID and title. So instead of them being nested inside of an object, it's just the attributes themselves.
So basically, if we didn't have the spread operator, we will have to declare some attribute and say article.url, URL equal article.url, ID equal article.id, and so on. Okay,
Exactly. So
gotcha.
I would have to say here, ID equals, oops, article.id. And I would have to do it for every single one because it's taking in, so ID, title. So if I finish doing these like this, all of those would be equivalent to me sending in the article like this with a spread operator. So this is taking everything inside of this article object and spreading them out as individual attributes that are getting sent into the article as props.
Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, Lewis.
I'm getting this error,
Mhm.
and it says an uncut error, too many re-renders, which limits the number of renders to prevent an infinite loop.
So try refreshing your page first and see if that works. If you
I've had the same error.
No, I get the same error.
it's still the same error, okay.
Yeah.
Does it might be something in the on-click because of how this
You gotta wrap these in curly brackets.
In these?
Oh, no, it's the parentheses are still good. But yeah, curly bracket in front of ID and then end it.
Okay.
Did it work? So earlier I was getting that error and it was because I didn't have this, right? So when I'm doing this, I get my too many renders. I hit the infinite loop. So the reason that is happening is because set show article is causing an update to the state. So because the state got updated, which we learned like set show articles updates the state, it triggers a re-render of the component itself. So, oops. So if I'm on this component, I'm on the article teaser, I click, it sets the show article, and then it's even actually before I click. So this is being called without the click happening. So it updates show article and then it re-renders. And then when it re-renders, it gets to this line to define that there's a div here and it sees a function and then it executes this function. And so that triggers another render and another and another, and that's why there's an infinite loop. So
No, mine's is like how you had it before, like that.
How about, is it only in this page?
Yeah.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
So yeah, I keep getting this error.
Okay, where is the render happening? Can you scroll up a little bit? In the console, in the error console.
Oh, yeah.
So it occurred in article teaser. Can you click on that link? Yeah. Okay, so it's happening at the top and it's just re-rendering. Can I see the top of this function real quick?
Mhm.
Okay, so I see the issue. So line 21 is not inside of a function. So every time the article teaser component is being rendered, line 21 executes. So line 21, because it's setting a state, it's going to trigger a re-render. So every time it gets to line 21, it's going to re-render. It's going to start at the top again. It's going to render. It's going to get to line 21 and then re-render again. So it's going to keep going in an infinite loop. So that is what is triggering the infinite loop. So if you comment that one out and refresh, there we go. So we never want to have the set state function of the like set show article, set whatever that function is that sets the state. We never want to have it outside of a function, and we won't never want to have it being called without a certain like trigger, basically. Did that make sense, Louis? Like why it wasn't working?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Don't you have that though in yours as well? Like I see it
Sorry.
right there, 925.
So I have it inside of a function. And
Oh,
that
okay.
is being called. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can have it inside of a function. It would be fine. Awesome. Let's implement the app nav before time runs out, and then we can talk about or like answer some more questions as well. Okay, so I'm going to my app nav. I want to make this an actual nav bar. So let me look at the docs. React nav. Oh, this is React Bootstrap specific. It's just going to be a regular nav element. Yeah, this is another component library that's pretty cool. R-Suite.js. Okay, never mind. We're just going to use the normal HTML one right now. If I'm not mistaken, it's just the nav, and then we have a list of links inside of it. So app nav is, it's supposed to have the information of the what is it called? What am I doing? Okay, there we go. So in our data, we used our news data, and that's what we were displaying earlier, but we also have this sections.json that I had created. So this one reflects what it should be in the nav bar. So we want to import this list. So at the top here, I'm going to say import sections from dot slash, no, it's dot slash, oops, data slash sections.json. So this sections variable is going to be a list of objects where the actual the label is going to be under label. So if I go back to my app nav, let's say each label, for right now, this label, when it's clicked, we can have it be, we can have it maybe do like a message on in our window, like an alert that we've clicked this, because we don't really have anything to go to right now. Okay, so we have our list of sections. Let's say we don't want it to be in any certain form like we used earlier with the states. So I want to just keep it from here. How do we loop through this and create like some, I was gonna say an A tag, but an anchor, but
Map again.
map, yes, we will use map. So a component, thank you. That's the, I'm thinking myself, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Okay. Sections. So we're gonna take the list of sections dot map, and then we are going to grab each section. Oops. And that will map to an element that we're going to return. So this element, I'm just going to put it in paragraph tag for now, or any other element that you guys think would be better. So inside of my sections, let me look at it again. I'm just going to access section.label to access the actual label. So this is going to be inside of parentheses because it's a variable. So section.label is going to display the label for me. So let me just test it out real quick. Okay, so we have this going this way. Inside of the nav, I think it's nav item. Is it? I actually haven't used nav in a while. Okay, let's just say that this is our nav bar for now. It's not really a bar, it needs some CSS to make it better, make it horizontal. Now let's do an on click that does an alert that we clicked on this function. So for each p tag, let's say there's an on click event. And what should this on click do? Does anyone know how to make an alert happen on the screen? Just in JavaScript.
Isn't just alert and you pass through whatever, like alert message?
Mm-hmm. So
and then don't we have to do like an anonymous function for this too?
Yes, we do. There we go. So we can say you have clicked, and then I'm gonna append the section label. So here, oops. I forgot I don't need to put the curly braces because it's within the curly braces out here. Okay, so basically when I click on each one, it's going to give me an alert that I've clicked on that specific one. Refresh. I'm getting this warning again. I don't care right now. So if I click, you have clicked. Passed. Click new, you've clicked new. So that's just a basic click event. So styling is a big thing when we're working on front-end applications. And I mentioned this briefly earlier, but there's a React Bootstrap library, I would say library, framework. So we can install regular Bootstrap and use those, use each of those methods by themselves. Sorry, not methods, attributes. So similar to what we've seen when we were working in Django or just regular HTML and CSS, we can use those individual attributes or class names to make the styling better for us. But I'm going to show you a different way right now. So I'm on the Bootstrap docs. I'm actually going to send this to you guys. Where's the chat? Oh, did I miss anyone from the chat? Because I got... Okay. Oh, I saw Kayla's. Okay. Instead of this, I'll do nav item. So it was nav item. Also, this is getting a little ugly to look at, so I'm gonna just do this. And if I'm returning something that has multiple, so I'm not starting it on the same line as the return, I would have to put parentheses. And then I can put this on here. But if I didn't, and if I just went like this, none of this would actually get returned. So that's something to remember. However, if you're returning an HTML element, if you just put the opening tag up here or you put the beginning of it, it'll include everything below. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if I go here, okay, now it's showing all of them like this. It needs some spacing. The spacing needs fixing. But let's say I want to use the React Bootstrap the nav bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my server real quick. So Control C to stop the server. I'm going to go to the docs. I'm going to paste that into, I already did. So here I'm going to run this npm install first. So npm install, I'm installing two things. I'm installing React Bootstrap, and I'm also installing the original Bootstrap. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to copy that and just let it run. Awesome. So now that it's installed, you can import components. But one thing that you have to do is down here, you have to import the CSS. Yeah. So down here where it says style sheets, you have to add this in either like an index.js or app.js. So whatever your main pages, you can put it in there. So I just grabbed this import and I'm gonna go into, we can put it in app. We can also put it in main.jsx just so we don't have to worry about it. I'm gonna put it in here. So it's just bootstrap /dist /css /bootstrap.min.css. A little long, but let's see what happens now. So if I go back to my app, nothing really changed. Oh, I did. I forgot I stopped my server. Okay, so I'm back to my terminal. I'm going to restart my server real quick. So npm run dev. I'm going to go check on this. It seemed like it changed. It changed the font of my app. So that is one thing that changed. So now, because I have it imported, or I have the styles imported, I can import specific components from that library. So I'm going to go back to the browser to see some components that they have. So the components are going to be here on the left. For me, I want nav. Let's see. This is a nav. Let's see the nav bar element because there's multiple. Okay, so the nav bar is a little more expansive. It has more stuff that you can do with. I'm just gonna stick to the base nav right now. So nav bar uses the nav itself. But for right now, I'm just gonna use something like this. So I have to import nav from React Bootstrap /nav. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna do that, import nav. And then I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna copy it, and then I'm gonna just kind of edit it to what I want it to be. And remove, okay, I'm gonna remove all these items, actually but one, just so I can see. Okay. So in general, let me just, okay, so we can see it better. Oops. Here, I don't want to worry about this. On select. So there's an on select for the items that is built in, where it's like an on click pretty much. So on select of an item, you can put it'll give you an alert pretty much using the key of what was clicked. I'm going to use a nav item. Instead of a link, I'm just going to keep my paragraph, which is not good. So href, that we don't have to worry about. So inside of the nav item, we're just going to say, actually, I'm just going to give it a name. I don't know if that will work, but let's copy this out. I just want to see the base functionality of this nav item. What is it going to do right now? Okay, so it's reloading. This one says active. If I click on it, nothing happens because I didn't really do anything specific with it. Okay, so the class is nav item here. Okay. I'm going to remove this on select because I don't know what it's doing. So I shouldn't have code that I don't know what it's doing in my my code. So we have a nav. Inside of this nav, we're going to have a bunch of nav items. So inside of this, I'm going to copy what I have in here. So inside of the nav, I'm going to put the map. So I'm going to map through my sections. And then for each one, I'm going to return a nav.item. So nav.item. And then this one will be also a nav.item. Delete that. So now we have our nav, and then we'll return an item where each item has an on-click function. So we can just get alerted whenever we click on the specific one. We can add also a key. So our key, just so we don't get that one error. I'm just going to say that the key is going to be the label that we grabbed. So section.label, save, and we go back here. We see here it's working. It still looks very, very ugly, which I feel like the styles are not showing up for some reason. So I'll check on that later. Basically, yes, we created a nav bar that's not the best, but it is there. So here you can also disable certain nav pieces. What if I look at the nav bar itself? Let me see here. Nav bar. It seems like they're all links. And we can just put in
Is
here.
there on line 10, if you put a space before session dot label, it will, at least it will give you some space inside your.
Yes. So here, like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I put a tab, so maybe the tab won't show up. But if I put space, I'll put 2 spaces here. Let's see now. No, it's still squishing them. So here, div, each one is a nav item. I think, so in the examples, it seems like nav.link is the way to go for these. So I'm going to create a nav item that encompasses a nav link. And then this link is going to contain all this information. So I go back here. So this link has a key, and it also has an on-click function. And then inside of here, yeah, there we go. This looks better. And then the key, I could also have the same key for the item itself because they're both representing the same thing. So if I do that, I refresh, I don't have any errors. And if I click, it just tells me what I have clicked. I am curious to see inside of their example, they had on select. I want to see what this will actually do. So the on select was on the entire nav, and it takes the key of whatever was selected and supposed to say selected whatever. So I'm gonna remove my on click for a second and see if this will do what I wanted it to do. So if I click, no, it's not. Okay, so I'll do some more Googling on what this on select means. But yeah, we've now used React Bootstrap. This is just one of the many components that you can take. So this just makes it easier to, I know there's trade-offs, so easier is relative. So this will help you style things as you go without having to actually deal with the styles. I just like to do that. Brian, I copied from the React Bootstrap one, I copied the navs one. So in navs, I just grabbed this, but I deleted most of it. So I deleted this and I just created a nav item and within it a link. We don't have an href right now, but yeah, we'll look at those later. We'll look at those probably tomorrow. Any questions? Anything you want explained again or seen differently?
I have a question. It's kind of more generic to React than this specific app, but what are the pros and drawbacks of using Vite versus like other methods of installing React?
So like create React app versus Vite?
Yeah.
It's so the reason we're using Vite is just because it's faster. It builds the project faster, and it compiles the files in a more what is it called? In a more optimized way. That's their whole selling point. Create React app is the original way to scaffold out a project. The project structure is pretty much the same. Some of the files might be in different places. I would recommend like running Create React app and see what it does. But yeah, it's basically the same thing. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is if you're using a project that was created with one versus the other, the scripts that you'll use. So we do npm run dev, and that's the one that starts the dev server. If this project was created with create React app, it would probably be start instead. And that would start our dev server, and it would use something else. So it won't use the V specific one that builds projects. It would be different.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I was going over some tutorials over the weekend and everybody was using the other method rather than V.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. It's pretty much the same thing. So once they're created, you just add your code and run it, and it all should work the same. Yeah. Any other questions? So